My name is Freya. At the time, I was live streaming a talk on trust in families, a topic I truly believed I understood, until my phone buzzed. A FaceTime call from my husband, Nathan, suddenly popped up on screen in front of thousands of viewers, and within seconds I saw my sister, Ashley, sitting on his lap, kissing him passionately in his office. I kept smiling, kept talking about loyalty, but inside, everything shattered. Have you ever been betrayed so deeply you couldn't even recognize yourself? If you've lived through a moment like that, leave a comment to let me know I'm not alone. And if you want to hear how I picked myself up, not for revenge, but to reclaim who I am, please like, subscribe, and stay tuned because what happened after that was far worse. If you think this all started with one accidental FaceTime, then maybe you've never spent your whole youth carrying a family that never once called it sacrifice. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a silver-white 3-bedroom house with a tiny porch lined with lilacs every spring. My mom died when I was 15, a car crash, right after her 3rd consecutive overnight shift at the local hospital. They said she nodded off behind the wheel. That death split my world into before and after, and turned me from a teenage girl who wrote in journals into the one who cooked, cleaned, and became mom. Ashley was 9 back then. She still sucked her thumb and begged for bedtime stories. And me, I had to swallow my sobs just to lull her to sleep. No one taught me how to be a mother while still learning how to be a woman. But I did it. Not because anyone asked me to, because no one else would. My father, Ron, was a principled, quiet mechanical engineer. After Mom passed, he fell deeper into silence. Every day, he'd come home and sit in the same leather chair by the window, staring out at the rotting wooden fence. When the doctor diagnosed him with heart disease, I turned down a summer internship at a media firm in Seattle. I stayed, took a job at a print shop, tutored at night, and enrolled in community college so I wouldn't be far from home. Ashley, on the other hand, always shone. Tall, blonde, with a smile that softened anyone. She's going farther than her sister ever will, people often said. And I believed that too. That's why I poured every dollar I saved to send her to Los Angeles to study communications. The major I once dreamed of, but never had the time, the money, or anyone to lean on so I could chase it. During those years, I met Nathan. He was in my analytical philosophy class at Oregon State. I was a part-time teaching assistant, balancing lectures with shifts at the campus cafe. Nathan, brown hair, black-rimmed glasses, always asking questions about ontology I had to research before answering, struck up a conversation with a paper airplane. It read, "Do you prefer Camus or Sartre? Also, your coffee's great." I laughed. We fell in love quietly. I didn't have time for parties or weekend trips, but Nathan found something in me that I didn't think anyone had ever seen before. Someone who listened, who stood in the background and quietly held everything together. We got married after 3 years, a small backyard wedding with purple dahlias I arranged myself. Ashley was my bridesmaid. My father walked me down the aisle even though his legs trembled and his hand never let go of the photo of my mom tucked inside his suit pocket. I thought I had found happiness, and I did, in the quietest, most persistent way. Until Nathan's mother, Darlene, told me over dinner after the wedding, "Freya, you seem like a good person. But Nathan has tremendous potential. Don't make him choose between family and his career. A smart wife knows when to step back." I smiled and kept clearing plates. Nathan either didn't hear it or pretended not to. I never really stepped back, but I never moved forward either. I was always in the middle, close enough to hold things together, never close enough to own anyone's whole heart. And with Ashley, that became more obvious over time. After graduation, Ashley started working at a PR firm in Los Angeles, then moved to New York, then Miami. Everywhere she went, she always met interesting people, and every time she called, she'd say, I wish you'd live more for yourself. Stop carrying everything like Mom did." It sounded like love, but it was really a warning, because the one who told me to stop carrying would later be the one who placed the heaviest burden on me, without ever knowing or caring. And then, one day, when I thought I had finally built the home I'd longed for, that call came. right in the middle of a live stream. The name Nathan FaceTime appeared. And I answered, not knowing I was opening the door to everything I'd tried to protect crumbling in just 14 seconds. It may seem like it all started in that moment, but the ending had been set in motion long before. I just never imagined the first person to walk out of that door would be my own sister. After that live stream, I went quiet, and I started quietly retracing the clues I should have seen long ago. I opened my laptop and logged into the joint bank account Nathan and I shared, something I'd barely glanced at the last 3 years, only to pay bills or check office rent. It all looked familiar, until I noticed a string of regular withdrawals. The recipient name was unfamiliar, Hartford Media Solutions LLC. Every month, $3,000 to $5,000 were being transferred under the label Media Investment. I typed the company name into Google, heart racing. The top result was a site still under construction. Basic layout, but oddly, the About section said, "We are a creative firm shaping modern family branding, drawing inspiration from the lives of founders Freya and Nathan Hartford." Right below it was our wedding photo. Me in a high-collared lace gown. Nathan holding me from behind, one hand resting gently at my waist. I never gave permission for that photo to appear anywhere, ever. I clicked Founders. Ashley's profile popped up. Same glowing smile, shoulders lit under studio lighting. Beside it, her title, Ashley Hartford, creative director, media consultant who's worked with over 12 fashion brands in Miami and Los Angeles. Currently co-building a family brand startup with iconic couple Freya and Nathan Hartford. I read it 3 times. My name wasn't used. I had been turned into decor for a dream family they were building, on my back. I closed the laptop and stood. My hands were ice cold. My chest felt like it was being crushed. I walked around the house. And everything looked different. The wedding photo on the wooden shelf. The sticky note on the fridge from Nathan. Meeting with Ashley home late. The red dress Ashley left behind after stopping by. I called the bank. I'd like to verify some transactions to Hartford Media Solutions. Who owns that account? The woman on the line was polite. I'm sorry, we can only provide that information if the account is under your name, or if you're legally authorized. Is that account linked to Nathan Hartford? I'll check. Please hold. 3 minutes later, she confirmed. Yes, the Hartford Media Solutions LLC account is registered to Mr. Nathan Hartford. Established this February. Registered address matches his law office. February, that's my birthday month. Also the month Ashley happened to be in Portland for my birthday and stayed an extra week due to a flight issue. I opened the filing cabinet and pulled out the folder with our home ownership documents, our biggest asset as a couple. But when I held the paper, I froze. The sole name listed as owner was Nathan. I remembered clearly we bought this house 3 months after the wedding. I'd always assumed his name was on it for mortgage reasons. Taxes will be lower, I'm the main income earner, Nathan had said. I picked up the phone and called Claire, my only close friend from college, now a financial advisor. Claire, if someone transfers a house from their personal name to their company, but still lives in it, is that suspicious? She hesitated. Depends on the purpose. But if it's transferred to a company with few employees and used as a business address, it's usually to protect the asset from disputes or to reduce liability in case of lawsuits. Why? What if it's a shared asset between spouses but only one person is on the title, and that person transfers it to their own company? Claire went silent for a few seconds, then spoke slowly. Then the other spouse could lose everything if there's no clear marital agreement. I felt my heart beat slow, each thump like someone pounding from inside my chest. I tried to keep my voice steady. Thanks, Claire. I need some time to go over everything. I opened my closet, rummaged through an old document box, pulled out the hard drive I used to store client files, design portfolios, brand visuals I'd created, including some logos Ashley once asked me to mock up real quick when she was starting out in PR. I began checking file by file, and then I found them. Logos, color palettes, sample campaigns. Every piece matched what was currently displayed on the Hartford Media Solutions website. In one PowerPoint file, I even saw a title slide, The Hartford Image. building family-centric brands, storytelling through real relationships. And underneath it, a photo of Nathan and me on a trip to Seattle during our first year of marriage. I shut the laptop with trembling hands. Every emotion converged into a single point. I wasn't the victim of a sudden affair. I was the background character in a strategy that had been carefully built. A branding tool, soon to be discarded when I no longer matched their image. If they thought I would disappear quietly, they forgot one thing. I was the one who once carried this whole family, and this time, I would reclaim everything taken under my name. I didn't expect anyone to take my side, but I didn't think I'd be cast out so quickly either. Less than a week after I discovered the truth, my mother-in-law Darlene called and invited me to dinner to have a mature conversation. I went, thinking she might be the one person who had, at some point, acknowledged me, even if coldly. But the moment I sat down, before my water glass even touched the table, she said bluntly, "Freya, don't take this the wrong way, but, you know, Ashley is a very capable young woman. Quick, charming, ambitious. She fits Nathan better, more in line with what a proper wife should be." I set my glass down, trying to keep my hands from shaking. "So, what does that make me?" Darlene pressed her lips together, then offered a small smile, as if I was overreacting. "You're kind, thoughtful, but kindness alone isn't enough, Freya. The woman Nathan needs is someone who can accompany him to events, network with partners, understand the market. Ashley has a background in media, PR, branding, and you? Work from home, keep to yourself, you live simply. That's not your fault, it's just that I'm not enough to keep my own husband?" She didn't answer right away, but her eyes said everything. I left her house that night without touching a single dish. I didn't cry. I simply drove home, past the streets where Nathan and I once counted every penny to afford our first house. Then came the friends. It didn't have many close ones. Just a few from college, a couple of industry contacts in design. They heard the story through texts, online news, or from Ashley herself. One of them, Ava, who had been a bridesmaid at my wedding, texted me to meet for coffee. "Freya, I know you're hurt, but I think, now that it's happened, maybe don't make it worse. The more noise you make, the more likely they'll retaliate." "I'm not trying to retaliate," I said. "Good, because I don't think Nathan is a bad person. You know, men face pressure too. If they don't feel supported properly in a marriage, sometimes they look elsewhere to compensate. A man who betrays his wife and siphons money from their joint account to build a career with her sister, is that your idea of compensating?" Ava shrugged. "Ashley's not a bad person either. Maybe there's something between them that you and Nathan lost." "Exactly. There are things between them that I don't have anymore. Like a lack of integrity, shamelessness, and the ability to convince others that betrayal is some kind of compatibility." I stood up, said nothing more. That coffee was the last time I saw Ava. But the breaking point was a letter, embossed with metallic trim, sent from the same email Ashley once used to send me birthday cards every year. Now, it was her business email. Subject line, "Proposal for amicable resolution." I read it over and over, every sentence like a thin blade sliding through skin. "Dear sister, I'm not writing this to justify anything. I know no words can undo the pain you're feeling. I want to find a way for everyone to move forward without more hurt. Nathan and I didn't mean for things to happen this way, but emotions aren't controllable, and after months of working together we realized there was something deeper between us. You've always been strong, and I know you'll get through this. As for the assets, you can keep the old house in Eugene. Nathan and I only ask for full control over the new media company. In return, we hope you won't make personal details public or speak in ways that could harm the brand we're building. From the bottom of my heart, I hope we're still family." Ashley, our family? I sat in front of the screen, rereading "Still Family" until the words blurred. From the same person who used my wedding photo in a sponsor proposal? The same person who held my hand in the hospital when Dad was dying and whispered, "You're all I have left?" I printed the letter, placed it on the table, and wrote one line in red pen along the margin. "I don't need fake peace, I need real justice." That night I drank a cup of black tea, turned on every light in the small kitchen, and opened my laptop. All outside ties had fallen away, the advice, the concerned messages, the fake nods. I folded them all away like a finished notebook. There was no one standing beside me, but no one holding me back either. And that was the moment I truly started moving forward. Without anyone's hand, without asking permission, without preserving the image of family foundation. Because that foundation had long since rotted away. That morning, it was lightly raining. Portland always had that kind of rain, quiet, steady, never loud, but enough to soak through if you stood too long. I stood under the awning of a red brick building, staring at the wooden sign engraved, "Edith Ford, Intellectual Property and Creative Rights Law." It had been over 2 years since I last worked with Edith, when she hired me to redesign her law office website. She'd been an easygoing client, sharp but deeply principled. We were never close. But I remembered her eyes, calm and always seeming to read your mind while you were still speaking. When I knocked, she recognized me instantly. "Freya Hartford. Didn't expect to see you under these circumstances." I gave a faint smile, too drained for polite pretense. "Neither did I." She welcomed me in, handed me a cup of hot ginger tea. In a room lined with thick bookshelves and soft golden lighting, I laid it all out. Every image, every logo, the designs I'd made for Ashley when she said she was testing out some ideas for a startup. The palettes, the branding boards, the draft layouts, all of which now sat on the Hartford Media Solutions website, copyrighted under Nathan's name, as if it were all their work. Edith didn't interrupt me. She simply flipped through each page, jotting notes in a dark brown leather notebook. "When you sent the files to Ashley," Edith asked, "was there any written agreement?" "No, but in the email where I attached the designs, I clearly stated they were for personal use only, and not authorized for commercial purposes." She nodded. "The email itself constitutes a terms declaration. If the other party doesn't object, it's legally considered acceptance. And now they're using the material to raise funds and generate revenue. Legally speaking, that's a copyright violation." "Can you sue them?" I asked. "Yes, and you should. But before that, we need stronger evidence, screenshots, original file metadata, proof of creation, date, time sent, and how the designs are currently being used." "I have all of it." I pulled the hard drive from my bag and placed it on the table. "And I want to do more than just file a lawsuit." Edith raised an eyebrow. "I want to go public. Not out of revenge, but so they can't keep using this perfect family image to deceive others." Edith looked at me for a long beat, then smiled softly. "You didn't come here to beg for justice, you came here to reclaim your voice. I like that." 2 days later, I texted Camila Montez. We'd met years ago at a small event where I had designed the stage backdrop. Camila was a journalist specializing in startups, and had a particular passion for uncovering fake ventures that used personal branding to mask darker agendas. I sent a short message. "I've got a media startup built on a fake marriage and a real wife. Want to talk?" Camila replied exactly 2 minutes later. "Send the address. I'll bring the coffee." We met at my small home studio, where I still worked. Camila didn't waste time. She listened as I laid out the whole story, scribbling occasional notes with a fine-tip pen, and nodding slowly. "Do you have any wedding photos they've used without permission?" "I have the originals, and the edited versions they're posting on the company's social media." "And the house and company are both under Nathan's name?" "Yes, but Edith has already started digging into the asset ownership and corporate structure." Amala opened her laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet timeline. "Walk me through the timeline from when you sent the files to Ashley to the date the company was registered to when the money started leaving the account." "Freya, did you know?" Camila looked up. "Their startup was just selected for the top 10 in a family media competition by an investment fund in Seattle. Total prize $150,000 and a 2-year brand consulting contract. With my wedding photos and my work? And with the reputation of the Hartford couple? An icon for the creative generation balancing career and family." Camila quoted the exact line. I leaned back in my chair. Can we stop them? Not stop, but we can show the world who they really are before they collect the prize. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. Edith, the one protecting me with legal language. Camila, the one casting light on the shadows they hoped no one would see. And me, the woman who once felt small, now learning to turn silence into strategy. I was sitting in my little office finishing a color palette for a nonprofit project when my phone screen suddenly lit up. A FaceTime call from Grandma Marjorie. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Her wrinkled face appeared, eyes sharp and alert. She was sitting by a window, soft afternoon light streaming through cream lace curtains, tinting her silver hair with a golden hue. Freya, is that you? Her voice trembled slightly, but was clear. Yes, it's me. Is everything okay, Grandma? She squinted, leaning closer to the screen as if to make sure it was really me. There was something on TV. A morning interview show. I turned it on thinking it was a cooking segment. She paused briefly, then lowered her voice. But then I saw Ashley and Nathan. They were introduced as the most inspiring co-founder couple of the year in a startup love story segment. I thought my eyes were playing tricks, but they called out your names clearly. Said the love story began with a shared passion for creativity and building the ideal family image. They even showed old pictures, wedding photos, you and Nathan, but with the colors adjusted and your face removed. I wasn't in it. I was erased from everything. Freya, why? Why didn't anyone in the family tell me? Why have you disappeared? Because, Grandma? To them, I was never really there. Her brows furrowed. What do you mean? I pulled my tablet from the desk drawer, opened Edith's report emails, screenshots from Camilla, bank records, and told her everything, step by step, that Ashley had used my name to build a new startup, that Nathan had transferred assets into his own company, that they used my image to tell a love story I was never part of, and that the world believed it without asking a single question. She didn't interrupt, didn't argue. Finally, she asked, slowly, Does your mother know? She does, but Mom thinks Ashley is the better match for Nathan. She said love doesn't choose sides, and maybe this is life's way of setting things right. Grandma let out a long, heavy sigh, as if it had been stuck in her chest for years. What kind of right is that? What's right about a girl stealing her sister's husband and going on TV to preach about startup love? I may be old, but I'm not senile, Freya. What you've described is deceit, not destiny. I couldn't hold it in. Tears streamed down my face even though I made no sound. Maybe because for the first time, after everything, someone in the family said out loud that I wasn't crazy, overly sensitive, or someone who needed to know her place. Grandma? Listen to me. She sat up straight, eyes sharpening like years of age melted into sudden clarity. When your mother died, I didn't cry much. I was afraid you kids would get scared. But that day I swore to myself, if anything unjust ever happened to either of you, I'd be the first to speak up. I was speechless. I used to think Ashley was just a girl who needed love, but now, it seems she needed guidance more than indulgence. Grandma, no one believes me. Everyone says I should stay quiet to protect the family image. Then stop protecting it. Family isn't something to protect, it's something to stand up for. She paused, then clicked her tongue. So what are you going to do now? I won't scream. I won't run around claiming to be the victim. But I will make sure people see who really got hurt. And who's profiting from that pain. What do you need from me? I hesitated, then said softly, I need you not to forget me. Even if they erase my name from every paper, every screen, I need one person to remember I didn't vanish. She smiled, gently in that signature Marjorie way. You don't need anyone to remember, because you're going to make sure no one can ever forget. I arrived more than an hour early. The launch event for the fashion brand Aura by Hartford was held in the grand ballroom of a luxury hotel in downtown Seattle. Crystal chandeliers, glass walls, red carpet. Every detail meticulously crafted to evoke elegance, trendiness, and the spirit of modern, empowered femininity. At the center stood a small stage designed like a mini talk show set. an ivory round table, baby's breath flowers arranged off to one side, and a gold-plated microphone on the other. And in the middle, standing proudly in an emerald green jumpsuit, was Ashley. The same sister who once giggled when I taught her how to match colors in PowerPoint back in 9th grade, now speaking about a startup journey from the heart. I stood in the back corridor, watching her through the live stream projected on massive screens. I believe every successful brand starts with a real story, Ashley said in a carefully trained voice, soft yet confident. And for me that story began with love, a relationship full of challenges, where we had to choose between living authentically or living by a script. We chose the truth. Across the hall, Camila sat beside me in a hidden corner, headphones plugged into her laptop. Edith, back at her office, monitored the electronic submission of our federal lawsuit, along with a thick file proving copyright infringement, creative asset theft, and unauthorized use of personal imagery. 3, 2, 1, Camila whispered. Sent. Copies also delivered to the media team and the primary sponsor. On stage, Ashley continued, and I believe every woman has the right to tell her own story. In her own words, and through her own imagery. That's why I created Aura, so every woman can feel truly seen. Right at that moment, I saw Angela Wu, the representative from Citrine Capital, staring at her phone, then whispering something to the man beside her. Another person, a partner brand rep, pulled out his earbuds and frowned. I knew Camila had attached everything. The original logo designs I made for Ashley as personal samples back in 2020, the original Illustrator files, raw metadata, email history, along with our wedding photo, mine and Nathan's, edited for color and with my face blurred, marked for anonymous media use, and most damning of all, the speech Ashley sent from her email, ashley@hartfordmedia.com, containing a paragraph lifted word for word from a post I once wrote for a nonprofit project 3 years ago. It wasn't inspiration, it was the wholesale theft of a lived experience, creative output, and personal identity, repackaged as commercial property. I took out my phone. A message from Edith had come in. The lawsuit has been filed. Legal notice also sent to the broadcast network. Instantly, a strange noise came from the tech booth. The host, mid-introduction, was interrupted. The screen behind the stage suddenly went black, then turned system blue. No one knew what was happening. The host turned toward the wing, confused. Ashley stayed frozen, pausing but trying to maintain composure. Apologies, everyone. It seems we're having a slight technical issue. We'll be right back. But the sound didn't return. Instead, someone from the production team spoke into a hot mic. We've received a broadcast suspension order from the station's legal department. The room buzzed. Reporters began checking their phones. One read aloud from the Tech Mirror site. Intellectual theft exposed. The real story behind Aura. By Hartford Plagiarized Designs. Stolen identity and a lawsuit dropping mid-broadcast. I stepped out of the shadows, no microphone, no spotlight. Just one step into a packed ballroom, every eye darting between Ashley and me. She turned around and saw me as if she'd seen a ghost. Her face held that media-trained smile, but her lips trembled. You? What are you doing here? I stood exactly 3 steps away, close enough not to be ignored, but far enough that she couldn't touch me without crossing the boundary she'd created. I came to hear what story you'd tell next, I said. Freya, I think you should... No, I cut in. You thought wrong. And this time, I didn't come to warn you or cry. I came to reclaim what you and Nathan stole. My name, my work, and above all, the truth. A team member whispered something into Ashley's ear. Her face went pale. He held up the copyright suspension notice for a secondary camera. We're required to end this program due to pending intellectual property violations. Less than 10 minutes after the notice was issued, the investor seats began to empty. Angela Wu from Citrine Capital stood first. She said nothing to Ashley, closed her portfolio coldly, and walked out. Right after, Bennett Sloan from Solstice Partners pulled his headset down, took out his phone, and said one sentence to his assistant. Pull the funding, cancel the contract, immediately. On the live stream, the feed cut abruptly. The program's logo faded, replaced by a cold white line of text. Broadcast paused due to technical reasons. But everyone knew technology had nothing to do with it. An hour later, headlines started flooding in. Scandalaires at Aura launch. Founders accused of intellectual theft. Angel designates uncovered true creators. Steps into the light. Live launch happen investors. Withdraw following capital call from investment. From Masser allowed for urgent. My name? Freya Hartford. Return to the media. But this time it wasn't blurred, replaced, or misspelled like a shadow. It was sharp, precise, tied to one clear label. The rightful creator. As for them, Ashley and Nathan, they finally got the title they earned. Scandalized co-founders built a startup on someone else's name. And so the brand launch, funded for 8 long months, ended in 43 minutes, with no farewell to the audience, no backstage hugs, no commemorative photos, only a stack of scripts sliding quietly off the table, lost in the sound of retreating heels. 3 days after the failed launch, I got a call from an unknown number. Seattle area code? I didn't pick up. But when the voicemail played, the familiar voice made my chest tighten. Freya, it's Nathan. Please, call me back. Just once. We need to talk, not as exes but as two people who once shared a life. I don't want this to go too far. That night, a courier arrived at my door with an express envelope. Inside was a settlement offer brief, bearing Nathan's attorney's stamp. Bullet points laid out terms. A 70-30 assets split, a fixed payout, no royalties, with a strict confidentiality clause. I stopped at the final line. Plain wording, full of strategy. If agreed, Party A, that's me, commits to refraining from promoting, sharing, or discussing this matter on any media platform. I called Edith as soon as I finished reading. You see what they're afraid of now, she said, unsurprised. Not the court ruling? No, it's your ability to remain visible, authentically. They're trying to buy your silence. I closed the file and set it aside. I don't want their money. I want integrity. Then let the court define that clearly, Edith said. We're not backing down. The next day, Ashley posted a long blog entry to her personal page, with over 300,000 followers. The header image, a moody black and white shot, her back turned, hair loose, faint light casting a calculated melancholy. Title: A Letter of Apology, When Admiration Becomes a Mistake. She wrote about idolizing my sister since childhood, losing sight of boundaries in collaboration, and only realizing too late that things had gone too far. She said she never meant to take anything, but wanted so badly to enter her world that I lost myself. And finally the closing line. I'm sorry, Freya, the sister I've always admired and loved. The post spread fast. Some praised it as courageous vulnerability. Many others called it a victim performance in a new costume. I said nothing, posted no photos, made no comment. Instead, I launched a new platform. It's called TruthLayer, a community site built from the network of women freelancers, independent designers, and content creators I've connected with over the years, many of whom never dared to speak publicly about having their ideas stolen, work exploited, or silenced through legal loopholes. TruthLayer's design is simple, unflashy. On the home page, a single line in white on soft gray. Deed is our property. Stories are rights. Identity is a boundary. We don't publish clickbait. Every story goes through legal vetting, there's a feedback portal, volunteer attorneys, and each post is tagged with, "We believe you, now let the world believe you." I'm no longer telling my story. I'm helping others tell theirs, in voices they thought they'd lost. One morning I got an email from a girl in Florida. She wrote, I gave up on being a designer after a teacher used my sketches to register under someone else's name. But when I read that article on TruthLayer, I knew I wasn't crazy. I just needed someone to believe me. You don't need to be believed first to be protected. You need protection so you can speak up. That's not revenge. That's a realignment of order. And when Nathan sent one more letter, offering private reconciliation, this time with a few handwritten lines, I'm tired. You've won. Please don't destroy what's left of my career. Didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I left it sitting in my inbox as proof that this time I didn't disappear. I moved to Austin in mid-March, when the first cherry blossoms were still dusting the sidewalks on the south side of the city. No one saw me off. I didn't tell anyone except Grandma Marjorie and Edith. I found a small studio on the east side, a former barbershop attic with high ceilings, exposed brick, and a big window that opened to a sunlit balcony. It wasn't a dream home by Pinterest standards, but to me it was the first space I'd ever chosen for myself. No trace of Nathan, no perfume of Ashley on the pillows, no knocks from my mother full of doubt, no one but me and the morning light. I placed an old wooden desk by the window. On it, my computer, a pot of mint tea, and a small framed note, handwritten by Grandma Marjorie. In that strong, tidy script that even fountain pens would envy. You're the only one in the family who chose truth, and made it beautiful. Don't let anyone teach you that kindness means silence, because when truth goes unspoken, beauty is forgotten too. I read that line every morning as a reminder that I didn't come here to start over, but to keep going. This time, on my own feet. Not long after, I began receiving mentoring requests from young women studying design, most of them new to the industry or returning after years of being hurt in toxic work environments. One girl named Tiana, just 22, told me her former boss took credit for one of her designs and handed it to a client without her name attached. I didn't know what to do except cry, she said in our first meeting. I don't have a degree, no one behind me, and I'm scared of being labeled a troublemaker. I looked at her the way I once looked at myself, sitting at a desk, fists clenched around a sketchpad I didn't dare speak up about. I handed her a cup of hot tea and said, "They call you a troublemaker when you refuse to be silent." Tiana submitted her first story to TruthLayer 2 weeks later. My studio slowly became a small refuge for those who had been made to doubt their worth. I didn't teach them how to win. I taught them this: losing your voice doesn't mean you don't have one. A year later, I received an email from TEDx Austin. "We'd like to invite you to speak about your journey, not a scandal, but your perspective on resilience and creative ownership." I took a week to consider, not because I feared the stage, but because I knew telling my story meant reliving it once more. This time with no fresh wounds, but under a million eyes examining every scar. I accepted. On the day of the TEDx talk, I wore a white blouse with a rounded collar and light gray linen trousers. No evening gown, no armor of defiance, just me. Soft enough to be heard by anyone, steady enough not to be interrupted. I began my talk with a question. Have you ever had someone take your voice and not realize it until it appeared under someone else's name? I spoke about my small studio, about Tiana, about Grandma Marjorie. I didn't mention Nathan or Ashley by name. Only referred to them as those who thought taking someone else's voice was the fastest way to amplify their own. I ended with the title of the talk itself, Kindness Isn't Silence, because sometimes kindness isn't about staying quiet to keep the peace. It's about speaking up to protect who you are. When I stepped off stage, a young woman came toward me, tears still clinging to the corners of her eyes. "Ms. Freya, your talk helped me see myself again." I didn't know what else to say except something small. "Welcome back." And in that moment I knew I had stepped out of the dark, not through revenge, but by refusing to let the light I carried go out again. I have a small wooden box in the bottom drawer of my desk. No lock, no label, just a plain box, slightly chipped at the edges, its color darkened with time. Inside are things I once didn't have the courage to keep. A photo of me sitting on the steps of our old house in Portland. A faded cloth-bound notebook filled with design notes from my first year in the field. And a letter I wrote, sealed in an envelope addressed to Freya, age 20. I don't intend to send it. The recipient doesn't live at any real address. But I wrote it because I wanted to hear what no one ever told me at that age, just out of school, stepping into adulthood with hands always ready to help, and shoulders bent from the fear of being a burden. Dear Freya, you don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to be the one who's always right, always fast, always impressive, always on time. You only have to be the one still standing when everyone else has turned away, or collapsed because they chose the easier road. There will be times you'll believe you've lost, Because no one recognizes you, no one stands beside you, and the people you love most push you to the margins. But remember, doing the right thing rarely comes with applause. And kindness is never a reason to be forgotten. I folded the letter, gently placed it back in the box, not to hold on to the past, but to remind myself that the past no longer defines me. It only reminds me how far I've come. Lately I've been walking in the mornings, before Austin gets too hot and the small coffee shops along South Congress have finished drawing their curtains. There's one cafe I often stop at, June's, with soft jazz playing and a window seat where I like to sit and watch people pass by. One time, a middle-aged woman stopped at the window with a little girl, maybe 6 years old. The girl pressed her cheek to the glass, pointed at my open laptop and asked her mom, "Mommy, what's that lady doing?" The mother looked at me, then smiled down at her daughter. "She's working. Maybe she's writing or creating something beautiful." I don't know why that line stilled my heart. Maybe because, for so long, I believed I had to explain, justify, retail, to prove I existed, that I had been here, that I had been taken from. But now, even a passing glance from someone I'll never meet again is enough to remind me I don't need to answer anymore, because I'm still here, not replaced, not erased. I no longer say their names, not because I've forgiven them, but because they no longer get to play a lead role in this story. When people live under the illusion that things must end with clear winners and losers, they forget. Some endings aren't conclusions. They're simply when we stop letting someone exist in our narrative. I still keep a few memories, not to revisit, but to remember how far I've walked. Then I close them like the end of a good book, not torn, not burned, just no longer reread. On a May afternoon, I received a package from Grandma Marjorie, a small parcel wrapped in old newspaper with a sturdy cardboard backing. Inside was a photo of me at 18, standing on the shore of Cannon Beach, wind-blown hair, holding my very first sketchbook. On the back, in her graceful slanted handwriting, it read, "You don't have to fix everything to make others feel better. Just live in a way you won't regret yourself." I keep that photo on my desk, so that every day, when I sit down to design something new, I know I'm continuing a story, one where the main character doesn't need validation and isn't afraid of being forgotten, because she is me, and I am steady enough now to keep going without looking back to see who's still following. My story may end here, but its echo might still live in the hearts of those who've ever been cast aside simply because they refused to stay silent. What about you? Have you ever been called too sensitive, too stubborn, or a disgrace to the family just because you dared to speak up? Have you ever held on to an unsent letter, a pain no one saw, a truth no one wanted to hear, simply because you didn't want to hurt anyone else, even as you were hurting? If so, share your story in the comments. Because maybe your voice could be the light for someone still searching in the dark, like I once was. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family, self-worth, and the journey to finding your voice again.